Lucky enough now to be joined by Mike Tannenbaum. And Mike, want to start with your recent QB rankings. We've got 4 weeks of the season already behind us. Who's at the top of your rankings and who's at the bottom as it stands right now?
Yeah, well, I have Patrick Mahomes up there, but it's a great question because you could take any of those, Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, shake them up. They're all playing so well. And really at the bottom, a handful of guys like Davis Mills of Houston. And then based on injuries, like if Nick Foles would play, Tua Tagovailoa, some of that's injury related. But I think right now you could take the best 7 or 8 quarterbacks, and they are by far better than everybody else.
Justin Herbert really impressed some people. He's been impressive at points throughout the course of the season, but Monday night in particular, I mean, how for real are the Chargers in your estimation?
Yeah, I've loved Justin Herbert proudly. You can go back and look online, but he was my #1 quarterback 2 years ago. He has height, weight, speed, character, intelligence, arm strength. I think he's really special. And if Derwin James can stay healthy, his versatility, that defense is a little underrated, and I think they have a chance to win the AFC.
When you look at the situation with the Steelers, so much was made about Ben Roethlisberger heading into the year. Is this over for Ben Roethlisberger in Pittsburgh?
Yes, it was a year ago. And sometimes you hold on to a player too long because he's an all-time great, like Ben Roethlisberger. You want to honor him. You want to make sure he's treated well, but he can't play anymore. And the challenge for Pittsburgh, candidly, is now you have Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield, and Joe Burrow getting better, and they don't have a young replacement. And I think that gap's going to get bigger, not smaller.
So if you're the Steelers, can you explain kind of what you do from a management perspective to try to fill the void that Roethlisberger leaves behind? I mean, I know I saw that you mentioned maybe Cam Newton as a potential option. What should the strategy be for filling Ben Roethlisberger's role?
Carolyn, the verb is scour. They need to scour for the next quarterback. It could be the draft. It could be Dwayne Haskins. I would sign Cam Newton to a 2-year deal. I would just keep going and relentlessly pursue, someone being the next guy. You look at Philly, I think they've done a great job, drafted Jalen Hurts, signed Joe Flacco, traded for Gardner Minshew. Like, it's a mindset of keep going, keep looking. You can't have enough of them.
You saw the experiment with Cam Newton in New England. Granted, he had a very strange offseason to learn the playbook. It didn't quite gel. It was low risk for the Patriots. But what about the situation in Pittsburgh is different, bringing a quarterback like Cam in than it is in New England?
I think it's another year off the injury. I think he's healthier. I've seen Cam Newton tear up teams that I've been on. I got a lot of respect for him. And when healthy, I still think he has a lot left. And candidly, he's a better football player right now than Ben Roethlisberger. I have all the respect in the world for Ben going to the Hall of Fame, but that's in the ancient past. Right now, if I had to go win one football game and it was, A or B, I'm taking Cam Newton.
I mean, you would know better than me. The NFL is big business. It's always been big business, but it seems like the trend now is more quarterback movement. You saw Tom Brady leave New England, the place where he spent his entire career. He's so loved there. And Ben Roethlisberger obviously has, his history in Pittsburgh, but is that sort of old fabric of, hey, a guy comes and stays forever, sort of gone with the expectations that are placed upon these franchises from year to year? I mean, do you need to sort of say, thanks, Ben, for everything that you've given us, but no disrespect, we can't let you ride this out. We have to do what's best for us.
Yeah, look, I dealt with that a decade ago when I traded for Brett Favre. Think he's going to retire a Packer and go into the sunset. For whatever reason, in our sport, that doesn't happen. Jerry Rice didn't retire, just with the 49ers. We saw Joe Montana move around at the end. Obviously, what's going on with Tom Brady. It's just a really unique thing that most of the time these players don't end with the team they came in with.
Just one last question on the topic, because I had a chance to talk to Matt Ryan the other day for Sportsnet, and I did ask him something that I think he's probably been asked for a number of years now, which is when you lead so many statistical offensive categories and you're one of only 10 players to throw for over 350 passing touchdowns, and your defense keeps letting you down, and you haven't been able to get that ring. Why do you stay with a franchise like the Falcons? He's been very loyal to that organization from the start and said that they've treated him well. well. So, that's kind of been the refrain from him. But are you surprised when you see a quarterback like Matt Ryan continue to deal with an organization letting him down and deciding to stay regardless?
Yeah, that's a great question. Contextually, having those quarterbacks there, like what you're saying with Matt Ryan, there's something it's a force multiplier that, hey, we're the Falcons. This is what we stand for. We're going to treat them great coming in, going out. And I understand from a Pittsburgh perspective, like why that would be helpful and impactful as it relates to team building and culture. But it's weird because the juxtaposition of we're in the win business. And at some point, your locker room is your checks and balances. And they're going to look at you from a GM, head coach, and be like, this guy can't do it anymore. Like, we can't win. And as much as we want to honor him and the Matt Ryan comparison is really good, it fundamentally, at the end of the day, is, are they good enough to help us win?
In Jacksonville, Mike, this situation is kind of, there are past examples of things kind of going wrong with coaches, particularly coaches coming from the college ranks. But then there are part of what's going on with Urban Meyer that's unprecedented, not going back with the team on the plane. And I won't rehash kind of all the drama and salaciousness going around what he is dealing with at the moment. But you mentioned, winning matters. How flawed do you think the situation is right now in Jacksonville? If there was a way, because their quarterback's playing pretty well, if there was a way that they could somehow right this ship and get some wins, would this solve itself, or is this an unsolvable situation with a coach that essentially probably doesn't belong in this league?
Winning cures. Coach Parcells used to say, winning is a great deodorant. It covers up a lot of things that stink. And I think what Urban did was really disappointing. There's like this sort of like rhythm and ethos in the NFL of like, you go back with the team, you look at the game, win or lose, you look at injuries. So that was a big miss by him, not opining on the personal situation and going out. A lot of people have different opinions on that. I'm just saying from a football standpoint, that was really weird and surprising that he would do that. And if we were having this conversation, Carolyn, in 2 months and they're 8-4 and they're on this 8-game winning streak, this will be ancient history. He'll get the benefit of the doubt. If they lose, these things will come back up.
We always on the outside of the league, and it's impossible to really know, even when you cover the league, kind of what the true culture is. And I'm sure it varies by franchise to franchise, but you hear, the sort of cliches being thrown around all the time, like trust matters, leadership matters, having the voice of the locker room matters. I also grapple with that a little bit because it is a business at the end of the day. And so, when you think about a head coach losing the trust of the players or the locker room kind of going astray, I mean, how much truth is there to all these mantras and cliches that we hear about the league and how important those kind of fundamental philosophies are when building chemistry inside a locker room?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would tell you, based on my experience, it's defined a lot of different ways, culture but it comes back to like, what is the behavior that's acceptable? And if you're talking about putting a premium on like conditioning and you have players out of shape, you got to cut them. If you're a team that's going to preach, we're going to be disciplined, and you have players that commit penalties repeatedly, you got to cut them. And players will and I think one of Coach Belichick's superpowers, and I've been fortunate to work for him twice, is the standards are the standards. And we've seen for 2 decades him cut Richard Seymour and Lawyer Malloy and Randy Moss. Like, he does not care. Like, he's going to be beholden to what's best for the team. Mm-hmm. And that's really what culture is about in terms of like what behavior is ultimately acceptable by the organization. And that really becomes sort of like a self-fulfilling mechanism of players know, hey, if we don't meet the standard, I'm not going to be here.
Because you brought up Belichick, I am curious of your evaluation of Mac Jones. I mean, Belichick has seemed to nurture him, coach him. We saw a couple games ago, he kind of grabbed his hand, got him off the field after a loss, was talking to him, trying to coach him up. I mean, it seems like there is a good coach, young player chemistry happening there. How good do you think Mac Jones can be? Do you really see this kid as the future of the Patriots franchise at quarterback?
Yes. And I believed in him coming out. I thought, ironically, he was a young Matt Ryan, can make all the throws, good eye level, better athlete than people realize. And he's somebody that will go into a game. It's the old axiom that most teams will lose a football game before you have to win it. He'll never lose a football. I should say never. most times we don't lose a game, and has deceptive arm strength and really smart. I thought the touchdown on Hunter Henry in particular was fantastic in terms of him being able to scan the field.
What is your assessment of the quarterback situation in San Francisco?
Complicated because, Jimmy Garoppolo, when healthy, they can win like right now, Carolyn. Like they have a good enough team. They can win right now. Trey Lance intrigues me tremendously because I think Trey Lance has great upside, great athleticism, good arm strength, really smart, big. Like he checks all the boxes, but he played in one game last year. Like as a broadcaster, you wouldn't take, your best opportunity after not doing it for 2 years, right? Like you want to have reps, you want to have practice, you want to be able to put yourself in the best position possible to succeed. And he's played in one game. Like that matters. Like it's going to take a minute.
Just a couple questions more for you, Mike, if you have the time. I'm curious about Buffalo's defense because, a lot of people are saying that they're pretty good. And so far that they've shown although if you look at strength of schedule, I think they might have some meetings coming up that will challenge them more than they've been challenged already through 4 weeks of the season. Where would you kind of grade Buffalo's defense?
Yeah, so they play Kansas City this week. I think the final score is going to be 70-68. Yeah. It's better, and Greg Rousseau, their first-round pick, they have some younger pass rushers that if they play well, they have a chance to be pretty good. Matt Milano, Terrell Edmonds, again, if they're all healthy, I think they have a chance to be pretty good, especially with your young defensive linemen hopefully improving for them. I certainly think their defense is better than Kansas City's, and it really could be a game where whoever has the ball last wins the game.
Yeah, when you got to two of the three highest scoring offenses in the league in those two teams, do matchups like that in your experience typically come down to which defense plays better? I mean, I know that sounds like a simple question, but is that really the case where you got all this offensive firepower on both sides of the ball and it's really about which defense is going to show up and execute better?
Yeah, I think it comes down to, like, I see it so early. Like if you go back to that Kansas City Cleveland game, Baker had that one interception. It flipped the game. And I think if we were speaking early next week, we'll talk about – I don't presume either defense is going to play great because you're going against two great quarterbacks. But does somebody make a play in the fourth quarter? Is it a tip pass? Something happened where, that tips the game. But I don't think either defense is going to play great because I think they're going against just such a good, offense.
Just last one for you, Mike. So far as you kind of look at the 30,000-foot view and assess what you've seen through 4 weeks of the regular season heading into week 5, what has surprised you the most?
Arizona's defense. I think we all knew about Kyler Murray and A.J. Green and Hopkins, but the versatility of that defense, when you think of like Isaiah Simmons, Xavier Collins, Budda Baker, Byron Murphy, and then of course like Chandler Jones and J.J. Watt up front, like that could be a championship defense, and I didn't think that was the case, a month ago.
All right, Mike Tannenbaum, thanks so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.